Dear students, you are going to watch and listen four extracts from different speeches. While watching, match each extract with an appropriate description in the given table. Now, time to watch and listen.
For all the challenges we face, the growing threat of climate change could define the contours of this century more dramatically than any other. And what should give us hope that this is a turning point, that this is the moment we finally determined we would save our planet, is the fact that our nations share a sense of urgency about this challenge and a growing realization that it is within our power to do something about it. Our understanding of the ways human beings disrupt the climate advances by the day. 14 of the 15 warmest years on record have occurred since the year 2000. And 2015 is on pace to be the warmest year of all. No nation, large or small, wealthy or poor, is immune to what this means. This summer, I saw the effects of climate change firsthand in our northernmost state, Alaska, where the sea is already swallowing villages and eroding shorelines, where permafrost thaws and the tundra burns, where glaciers are melting at a pace unprecedented in modern times. And it was a preview of one possible future, a glimpse of our children's fate if the climate keeps changing faster than our efforts to address it. Submerged countries, abandoned cities, fields that no longer grow, political disruptions that trigger new conflict, and even more floods of desperate peoples seeking the sanctuary of nations not their own. That future is not one of strong economies, nor is it one where fragile states can find their footing. That future is one that we have the power to change. Right here, right now. But only if we rise to this moment. As one of America's governors has said, we are the first generation to feel the impact of climate change and the last generation that can do something about it. I've come here personally as the leader of the world's largest economy and the second largest emitter to say that the United States of America not only recognizes our role in creating this problem,
Spoken grammar, why is it important? That's a loaded question. It means I already assume it is important, and I'm going to tell you why. But I'm going to start with a bit of history. We're here, all of us, thanks to Cambridge University Press, which, as you know, is the oldest press in the world. And when it was founded by King Henry VIII. At the time of King Henry VIII's reign, people were learning languages. People in England, usually rich people and usually men, were learning Latin. Now, there's a little schoolboy's poem that says, Latin is a language as dead can be. It killed the ancient Romans and now it's killing me. But at that time, at the time of Henry VIII, Latin was quite a useful language. You needed it to travel around Europe. Just as today you could say you need English to go to different countries, at that time you needed Latin. But you didn't need it to write. You needed it to speak to people in France or Italy or Spain or Portugal. And the young men of England would get on their horses, get into their coaches, and do what was called the Grand tour. They would travel around Europe, learning to be gentlemen, and they would meet other gentlemen, and they would speak to them in Latin. What they learned in their schools in England was actually spoken Latin. They learned spoken grammar. And in Cambridge University Library, we have these original textbooks. They were called Vulgaria. And if you know Latin, you will know that Vulgaria means ordinary things, the things of the common people. And the language which these textbooks taught was the language of the common people, the vulgar. Vulgar has a much more negative meaning in modern English, but its original meaning simply means the people. So they were learning Latin, learning to speak Latin, not to write it, and learning the language of the ordinary people. Then everything changed. Science came in. And the language of science was also Latin, but it was a language for writing. And it became so important as the language of thought, language of intellectual pursuit, that the spoken grammars died. And for several centuries, grammars of English and grammars of Latin were all based upon the written language. And that situation persisted right down the centuries until, shall we say, the end of the last century, the end of the 20th century. Then it changed, and there are good reasons why things changed and why I'm here today able to talk about spoken grammar without feeling embarrassed, without feeling I'm talking about a suspicion.
My parents always said, Nick, you don't know what you can achieve until you try it. And the doctors looked at me and said, he's not going to walk, he's not going to go to school, he's not going to do anything in his life. And then my parents, they just loved me like crazy and said, you got to try. Try this, try that, try this, try that. And I'm thinking sometimes like, Mom and Dad, you're crazy, man. I have no arms, no legs. How would I ever be able to do this or do that? But they encouraged me and they loved me. And as human beings, we're waiting for stuff like that. We all want love. Everybody say love. Very good. The definition of tough means it's strong. To show your strength, you need to do something that's difficult. I would sound so stupid if I said, hey guys, I got a Matchbox car one day and I got some fishing line and I towed that Matchbox car all around all day. How tough is my BMW? That's stupid. I don't care if you end up being a janitor in this school. I'll tell you why. Because the janitor in my high school inspired me to be a speaker. He changed my life. He said, you should be a speaker. You know what I said? You're crazy. He said, no, really, you need to be a speaker. I said, stop it, man. 4 months later, he twisted my arm, and I said, yes. I spoke in front of 10 people, then another 10, then another 10, then I found myself in front of 300 sophomore students. And 3 minutes into my speech, half the girls were crying, and one girl in the middle of the room started weeping, and she put up her hand and she said, I'm so sorry, can I come up there and give you a hug? And in front of everybody, she came up and she hugged me and she cried on my shoulder and she whispered in this ear, thank you, thank you, thank you. No one's ever told me that they love me. No one's ever told me that I'm beautiful the way that I am. It was because my parents told me that I was beautiful that I'm still here. Some of you don't have those parents, and that's why I'm here. I love you and you're beautiful just the way you are. Never, ever give up.
But for your letter, I will be saying you should do this amount. Remember, it's 2 pages, but you should have 2 addresses on there, so that will take up room. So this is the minimum you should be doing, really. Okay, so the question we're going to look at for our A grade or our model letter in this video is this one. Last weekend you had to travel by train. The journey was disastrous and ruined your day. You decide to write a letter of complaint to the train company, making a convincing case for a full refund. Write your letter. It's out of 20 marks. And then just a bit of advice. It says the quality of your writing is more important than its length. You should write about 1 or 2 pages in your answer book. Okay. Although I do agree that quality is really important, I would really not advise writing 1 page in your exam. You should be looking at definitely the 2 sides. Okay, so let's look at the structure of a letter, how we're going to set it out. So in the top right hand corner, you should have your address. They probably won't give you the address for you in the exam. In fact, they won't. So you've just got to make up an address. So it doesn't really matter. As long as you do street, town, county and postcode, you'll be fine. Okay, then we would need the date. In a formal letter, say for example if it was 6th of June 2016, we wouldn't put 6/6/16, we would write the date out in full, so 6th of June 2016. Then you need the recipient's name and address, so the address you're writing to. Again, you probably won't get it in the exam. If you do, copy it out, but if not, just use your brain. So for example, in this case, we would write to the train company and you could make up an address. Then we need the name or polite greeting. If you don't have the name of the person, put dear sir or madam. The S of sir and the M of madam should be capital letters. If you are given a name, put the name. So one thing students do wrong, if they were getting the name saying John Smith, for example, they would put dear John Smith. So it should be dear Mr. Smith with a comma. Then in our introduction, 1 or 2 sentences, you're going to explain why you're writing. Then you're going to have your first main point, your second main point and your third main point. So in the letter of complaint to a train company, the first main point could be the staff were rude, the second main point could be the train was late, and the third main point could be that the toilets were disgusting, for example. It's really important in your letter, and this is where a lot of students go wrong, they will shove 5 or 6 reasons in one big paragraph. It's all cluttered, it all looks a bit of a mess. It's really important that you do 1 point, go into detail on that 1 point. So 1 point about the staff being rude, write 4 or 5 sentences. Your second main point about the toilets being disgusting, write 4 or 5 sentences on that. Your third main point about the train being late, write 4 or 5 sentences on that. Okay, then you're going to do action paragraph, which is a posh name for basically the conclusion of your letter, meaning what do you want to happen from sending this letter. You don't just want them to read it and then they put it in the bin. You want an action to come from this. So this could be you want them to apologize, you want a refund, whatever. Okay, and then you're going to put yours faithfully or yours sincerely. If it's yours faithfully, you're going to have dear sir or madam. If you put the name of the person, for example, dear Mr. Smith, you would say sincerely, and then you would just put your name at the end. Capital letters on first and surname, obviously. Okay.